Right, we are here at the Belfry today, and more specifically TaylorMade's Performance Lab. Now, my name is Johnny Percival and I have never had a full bag fitting, and today we are going to get driver all the way through to putter. Now, let's see what we discover.
All right, so before we get started, tell me a little bit about your game. Obviously, you've told me you're handicapped, single figure golfer, so you're a good player. Tell me a little bit about your bag, what you like, what's working well at the moment, what's not working well.
So I would say at the moment, and I think this is, I'm struggling a bit off the tee.
Okay.
I don't know quite why. It used to be probably the strongest part of my game.
Okay.
And I think primarily a confidence thing, but so that's why I've got the kind of like the mini driver in. That's kind of my fail-safe off the tee. Okay. And then I've never really had a 3-wood I could get along with, which is why I went for a 5. So I primarily just use that off the fairway, long par 5s, occasionally off the tee if it's like a particularly long par 3. Okay. I've never been a particularly strong long iron hitter. Okay. So having something slightly chunkier with a bit more forgiveness has always been quite handy. Okay. And then these, I've had them in the bag for about 1.5 years. They're the AI 200s. Yeah. And then, wedges 50, 54, 58. I tend to do most of my chipping with a 54. Okay. And then if I'm hitting kind of little bump and runs, I'll tend to use a pitching wedge. But that's emergencies only sand, and 50s kind of full shots into greens, I'd say.
I'm looking at your driver here. It's an 11-degree driver, and then you've got a mini at 11.5. Yeah. So yes, in your normal driver, if you like, your full-size driver, it's a longer shaft, slightly bigger head. When you get it, you're going to get a little bit more. But the mini drivers now, they're quick. They're hot off the face. So probably on 2 good hits, there's probably not loads of difference. You're going to get a little bit of a good hit, but there's not loads. So that's a flag that we need to look at, really. For me, if I can get you swinging it good with a full-length driver, obviously the performance hopefully is going to kick in. That tee height, all right?
Yeah, that's spot on.
Okay. On the feedback that you've given me and probably the swings that you're putting on it, you've lost a little bit of confidence in your driving. Yeah. That's not the club, that's just, if I give you, within reason, if you were hitting any driver now, kind of where you are. So that's my job, to try and start to build that little bit of confidence up, which you're obviously already trying to do anyway, because you've gone and got yourself a mini driver, slightly smaller head, smaller shaft, a little bit more loft. Ironically, it's similar loft to what you've got on your own. Your path is moving left, but it's being delivered with an open club face with not much loft. Yeah. Okay, so it's just, it's quite a, it's a shot which is going to cause you some problems at the moment on the golf course. We want to bring them Jenga blocks back and build that confidence up, and that does come from giving you a club that is a little bit easier to hit. Something with a little bit more loft. Yeah. When you look down, you see a little bit more loft to start to build that little bit of confidence. So I'm going to give you something. I'm not going to tell you what I'm giving you. Okay. I'm just going to let you have a little hit. Yeah. See how it looks, see how it feels, and then as you start to hit, I'll start to explain what we're doing. There we go.
Don't look at the head.
Good.
That's a good one.
So straight away, all right, we've picked up, 11 yards of carry there from anything else that you've hit. Okay, good shot. Okay, just give that a hit for me. Again, not going to tell you too much about it just yet. How does this feel?
Yeah, feels good. 5 of those last 6, I'd take those out on the course every day.
That's 12-degree, notched up 1 higher. So it's the static loft. So the static loft of the head is 12 there. I'm just trying to breed that little bit of confidence. Yeah. So you can see a little bit of loft. You feel as though you can get the ball up in the air.
I did notice it in the ball flight as well. Yeah. It was kind of that slightly more towering. Yeah. In terms of look at address, that appeals to me more.
Yeah, because of where you're at with driving at the moment. Good.
That's the one. That's absolutely fine with that as well. Whew. Building up a bit of a sweat.
Really good. Really good. I mean, that's completely night and day. So on the driver fitting, the numbers here, we are seeing a 10-mile-an-hour gain in ball speed. Certainly a huge significant jump, but it would be, certainly Johnny would be controlling this as much as the club, just because it was a much more easier club for Johnny to use. Spin rate came down, launch went up, ultimately distance started to increase significantly. You know, we picked up a carry from 210 to 244 and a rollout from 257 to 286, which is significantly, as I say, that's not just the club doing that. That is certainly Johnny swinging a bit more freely because it was something that was much more suited for him.
It all gets a little bit congested up at the top end, because so much of it tends to be kind of confidence-based, if that makes sense.
So on paper, let's say we were taking this out.
Yeah.
We have a 5-wood, then we go to a 3 rescue.
Yeah.
Based on if we keep 4 iron down all the way with a 3 wedge setup, plus your pitch obviously. Say the word 7-wood or a 9-wood to a golfer.
Yeah.
And they'd shudder with the with the thought of putting an extra head cover in the bag. Tommy Fleetwood's had I think he started in the US Open in 2024, had a 9-wood in. And again, they will have 15, 16 clubs and, you know, kind of change that round.
That is just such an appealing head shape.
Yeah.
Just slightly more square footage, just looks so good.
Yeah.
That was
good, yeah.
That's kind of what I'm looking for.
Okay. Good strike. So this is going too close to what the 5-wood is doing, because it's coming out flat.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a flag straight away that this, for me, because I like the 5-wood, I like that shape, but this doesn't get it in the bag. We're not going to hold the green. It's going to come out low. It's going to run. So that doesn't make the grade in terms of getting into that bag. And we talked about lofted fairway woods. You know, this is where I'd be looking at that 7-wood.
So what are we looking at here, loft-wise? 21 degrees?
21, yeah.
Okay.
Now, in fairness...
Oh, that looks fun, at the dress.
3-wood doesn't make it into the bag because dynamically we're not presenting enough loft or getting enough launch. So that 5-wood that we have is your 3, and this is really your 5.
Yeah,
okay.
That makes sense to me. That's
lovely.
The one.
Really good. Lovely. Really good.
Yeah.
And that idea of what we're saying to you, that it's a 7-wood, but it's a 5-wood for you.
Me, yeah.
I see hundreds of golfers during the year that they'll say, right, I've come for a fairway wood fit in.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with my 3-wood. The reason why they can't hit the 3-wood is there's just not enough loft on there for them. For me, a typical 15-degree 3-wood now off the fairway is probably the hardest shot to hit, because the modern day fairway wood, obviously they're a lot more lower spinning. Yeah. You need that loft to get up in the air. Now, if you've got the technique and the speed to get that up, fine. Yeah. If you haven't, but you start to see you get that dippy one, you don't get the carry, and ultimately you're not going to get the shot that you desire. We actually see that the 6-iron, the 5-iron, and the 4-iron are going to go exactly the same distance because the loft, the speed versus the loft doesn't activate properly, and we don't get that carry because the speed isn't there for the launch. And it's exactly the same with fairway woods and rescues. Now, if a golfer has a certain swing speed when it gets to the lower level, the likelihood is they don't need 14 clubs, because the speed doesn't dictate for them to get the right grouping of distances through the bag. Yeah. I've got an idea. I think I'd like to potentially go with the irons, which I think can unlock some performance for you, but we'll go through that and see where we come out.
Cool.
Going to give you P790. I know we talked about the idea of combo. I like that idea. Shorter iron just to retain a little bit more control, maybe sweep your eye a little bit. Okay. Give that a hit for me.
Thank you.
What sort of distance do you tend to see with your, I know obviously we've got some numbers here, but...
I mean, I'd typically say my 7-iron carry distance is probably 160, 165, I'd say on a good one, probably.
Yeah. Very good. That's different ball flight, isn't it?
Yeah.
is a real good starting point to look at matching up to peak height. So your club speed with a 7-iron was 82 average with your own.
Yeah.
You've actually picked up a bit of speed. Not really sure what that's down to now because it's the same shaft, but you're at 85 miles an hour. Now I would want to see really as a starting point, that in peak height in feet. Okay, so yours is a lot lower than that with your own 7-iron.
Yeah.
Now that one straight out the gate there was 88 feet.
Close.
That's a proper flight.
Yeah.
Okay, it's got more spin on it. It's got a better descent angle in terms of the landing angle. It's got a better peak height on it. So right now, that's a really, really good start. Lovely. But for you to see that height, I mean, that must be nice to see there.
Really refreshing.
Okay. Class. Really good.
Since I used the P790s, I think my ball strike has probably improved a little bit.
Yeah.
Which has kind of made me think, oh, maybe the P770 could be a good fit now.
Yeah. Yeah, you strike it definitely well enough for 770.
I think they also look absolutely sublime. So, not to say I like the P790s as well.
Where would you think in your head you would combo the set down?
I think probably, so it depending upon if we go with that 4-iron, I'd potentially go like 5.6, 790, 789 P, 770.
Okay. So these are a little bit weaker. So right now, I've got this as a standard loft on a 7-iron.
Yeah.
And I would weaken the 5 and 6 off in the 790.
Got it.
Lovely. Really, really, really good. Just based on them 2 shots, that's where I'd combo it as well. Yeah. If you look at the peak height of that 770, 86 feet.
Yeah.
There's 84 in the 790. The launch angle, 15.6 to 16. Ball speed, 116, 118. Spin, 66, 69. Carry, 159, 161. So that's where the crossover point is. And then it's down to the golfer of kind of what they like. I like the idea of you putting a 7-iron down in there, but then giving you that little bit more forgiveness. CG a little bit lower on the 790 and that 5 and 6 to get the ball
That's where I'd say, I know we spoke earlier about the fact that I wouldn't, when I say long irons, probably people a touch older than me grew up with 2 and 3 irons will smile at this, but 6 and 5 is where it's probably the 2 clubs where I, not weakest, but where I start to get a little bit twitchy. This is a long iron now.
You know, a 5 and 6 iron for for your handicap. If you've got a 5 and 6 iron into the green and you hit the green,
great
you're
result.
happy.
Yeah, absolutely delighted. Yeah. These feel lovely.
It's really good. Now you see there's just that little bit of movement in terms of the axis of the golf ball to the right. I'm just going to tweak it one because I couldn't change the loft and the lie at the same time on the fitting system.
So we're just looking at shape here, really,
yeah.
aren't we?
I like that.
Yeah.
Where you know when you hit that iron, it's going to pop up in the air, loads of height, loads of control, spin on it as well because you weren't getting the spin with your own. But again, I know you pull that a little bit, but again, you take that, that's the one that's going to run on the course. And you're striking that comfortably.
Yeah.
To be able
the
to
strikes feel better.
Yeah. You know, we get slightly longer, slightly more upright. Yeah, that's your club.
That's the one, isn't it?
Yeah, sounds better as well.
It does, yeah.
So we'll go 4, 5, 6, and then 7 to wedge in the 770s.
And are they 2 790s 2 degrees weaker?
1 degree.
1 degree weaker.
Starts with 2 and then went to 1.
1 degree weaker.
Yeah, and then the 770s will be standard.
Bob's your uncle.
Okay.
Fantastic. Yeah, my pitching and chipping's pretty solid, I'd say. Famous last words, but...
So you like to use the bounce, yeah?
Yeah.
15, 20 years ago, if you said to Joe Golfer, you know, you need a SBC ground, what does that mean? You know, but the golfers are getting a lot more educated now, which is good. So I'm literally gonna start you with a standard bounce in a mill grind 4.
Yeah.
Okay, and I literally just want to see you hit. Let's pick a target, or even just pitching it past that slope there.
Past the slope, yeah.
Better strike. What we don't want to see is it popping up to loft, high, right, and weak.
Yeah.
You know, you want to see, you know, ideally, the launch angle, you don't want it to be too high, but you obviously want that zip on it as well. But it's interesting to see how you kind of see it, and that's probably why you like to see a little bit of bounce. You feel as though you've got that safety if you are playing that floaty one. Yeah. Okay, just hit that. I'm not going to tell you what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, and again.
Felt good.
Hit this for me. Again, I'm not going to tell you what it is. And a lot of the time, and I know it's obviously off a mat, but we're also listening for the...
Yeah, you can really hear the difference.
Yeah, you can listen for the strike. Okay. Different. It didn't sound
quite as clean, did it?
Because there's not enough bounce on this. Sounds dead, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so if I go back into this one, so that's got 11 degrees of bounce on this one.
This one?
Yeah.
Is this the one we're hitting first?
Yes.
Or first?
Yeah.
That was nice.
Sounded good?
Yeah. Yeah, that feels good.
You like that?
Really nice, yeah. This already I can feel, like, even around the greens.
Yeah, build some confidence.
Really build some confidence, yeah.
So, Johnny, we spoke about, you know, looking at putters and, you know, obviously we spoke about your putter, you know, your typical classic blade, and you played that style for a long time. Obviously, there's been huge inroads with a multitude of different manufacturers into this kind of zero torque putter, because it is going to be very different to obviously what you have with your typical blade. Your blade obviously wants to swing kind of that open and shut door, with a zero torque aren't going to do that. You know, they are, you know, especially if you've got a kind of a shorter putt, it's literally, you know, you aim it up straight and you straight back through and you shoot and you're going to go in. All being equal with its irrelevant stroke. When I held your putter, it did have heavy weight in it for that length. It felt nice, you know, in terms of that, you know, you probably get that stability feeling from it. So certainly with that zero torque and the weight of them, I think you are gonna like the feel of that, of that weight. So it'll be really interesting to see how you roll it, how the ball rolls in terms of the look of it. If you look at some zero torque putters, the way they're designed in the market, the shaft is obviously going very back into the head.
This is kind of seems...
We're getting it a lot closer, we really tried. The engineers worked very hard, and that's why we didn't want to rush this out. If we're going to do it, we want to do it right, and we want to do it in a tailor-made way. So yeah, let's have a roll of it and see how you feel. I would say, you know, line the putt up, the ball up to your putt. We'll use our striped golf ball, so you're getting some instant feedback with a visual check golf ball.
I would say I'll probably make, at best, one of these around.
Okay.
To be completely honest, I'm intrigued to see just how much more kind of forgiveness.
So this will have our same insert, our pure roll insert that's in our Spider putters as well. Very good. You can see that ball straight away rolling end over end.
Yeah. I like the feel though, in terms of like on take back, it feels really stable.
Yeah. So you're not going to get that kind of swing that probably you're going to feel with your blade. So you can see everything set. There's no manipulation you have to do with a forward press. Everything's in there for you. It's literally just shoot and aim. Okay, so I would say you are, see right now you're aiming a bit right, you have to pull it to get a bit online there. So I would have you in kind of, obviously change your stance to it as well. Okay. Okay, that looks much better, okay. I think that's it's trying to get that technology, but bringing it in that Spider package, which I think is incredible.
I mean, it fits aesthetically really well
fits in the range, doesn't it? Yeah. No, I think we'll have a real successful year with it.
Excellent. Yeah, that's lovely.
Good stuff.
Cool. Right, Dan, so I've hit about 3,000 golf balls and we've worked our way through the entire bag. Some quite big takeaways, some big surprises for me.
Yeah.
What are the kind of key changes? We'll start with driver.
Yeah, I think obviously with your driver, that's probably hurting other parts of your game because you probably lost a little bit of confidence with it. The driver you had is a great driver, it just wasn't working right for you. So for me, it was trying to input some confidence into that product for you. Now that is changing the style of the head in terms of how it looks, changing the makeup of the shaft that was in it as well, and just giving you certainly a more forgiving driver. Ultimately what that did, it unlocked some performance. We've seen that from the gains in terms of the ball speed, the overall length. But then what I could see is the fitter, it unlocked the confidence for you to start swinging freely at it.
And then fairway woods, kind of what I was expecting, but I have to say, wasn't expecting to go 5 and 7, but made sense, didn't it?
Yeah, I think that's where the, you knew kind of where you're at with the fairway, but that's where the education comes in, and you can use the TrackMan and you can use the numbers that you get given, because essentially you don't need a 3-wood because the 5-wood for you particularly is going better and further than the 3-wood because you need that loft. So yes, we moved into a 5 and 7-wood, but in reality that's your 3 and 5-wood. So matching that up, getting the gap in right, and that blended lovely then as we moved into the irons.
It did indeed, and I kind of came into this telling you the occasional low one comes out. You solved that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I could kind of see that from early on. The fitting process starts from the minute you walk in. I'm getting as much information and I'm already thinking a few steps down the line, well, I think this is going to work well. Based on the feedback you give me, I quite like the shafts that you had in yours and the shots that you were hitting. Just the iron spec wasn't probably exactly what you wanted in this moment. So as we moved into something in a 790, which ultimately is it's forgiving iron, it's a player's distance iron, but we're not putting that in the bag for you. We were doing it to get the right flight by. What we were able to do is weaken that loft off in them longer irons to get the height, but then it started hitting the numbers and the consistent of the yardage. The peak height was so much better. So having that in and then couple that in the 770s to get in the right blend of the lofts as well. I think the real key one for me, which was nice to see, is you had a 4-iron in there, which was a spoke kind of driving iron. We tried some of ours and it wasn't really working. And then I gave you the 790, which you thought wasn't going to be the right one because it was a little bit sleeker. The performance was incredible.
That was one of the biggest surprises of today. I thought I was definitely going to go into driving iron in 4, and then P790 kind of blew it out of the water.
And you've got to take that confidence out on the course, because the way you were hitting that was incredible. And then to blend that out in through the set, and this isn't a kind of negativity on your behalf, but you didn't realize the gap that you had from your pitching wedge to your 50. So for the fact that we've got that, we've bridged that gap from, I think yours was 7 to 8 degrees difference when we checked it.
Like that.
So we've got a nice gap now from the 46 into the 50. The gapping was good, and then we blended that well, and then giving you something with a little bit more bounce in that 60 degree. Suddenly, you could hear the strike, you could hear the way you were clipping it was much
clipping
much
it
better.
really nicely. I was going to say big bounce guy. Kind of knew that, but that extra 2 degrees bounce in the 60 and moving from 58 to 60, I think is really
going to give you more options. And then the putter, obviously that is very different to what you've got. Zero tuck story is certainly hot at the moment, so it'd be really interesting to see how you take that onto the course. You were rolling them putts in well, so hopefully if you take that onto the course, we'll be holding some more putts.
Well, appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming down.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Take care.